You scared me, she whispers. I thought you were asleep. Couldn't sleep. Mrs. Lasky's dog was barking again. It's a lie, but it's easier than the truth. The truth is that I've been lying awake for weeks now, cataloging the changes in my wife like symptoms of a disease I don't want to diagnose. Hmm, she murmurs, already turning away from me, pulling the covers up to her chin. We had a client emergency. Vince and I had to stay late to fix the Morrison account. Vince. She's mentioned him more in the past month than she's mentioned my name to her friends in the past year. Vincent Vance, her coworker at Sterling Marketing Solutions, where Sam works as a senior account manager. Tall, handsome in that slick magazine ad way, drives a BMW that probably costs more than I make in 6 months. The kind of guy who wears cologne that costs $50 an ounce and thinks manual labor is beneath him. That's dedication, I say, and I mean it to sound supportive, but even I can hear the edge creeping into my voice. Sam doesn't respond. Within minutes, her breathing settles into the genuine rhythm of sleep. Or maybe she's just that good at pretending. These days, I'm not sure I know the difference. I wait another hour, listening to her breathe, watching the shadows from passing cars sweep across our bedroom walls. Our house sits on a corner lot, so there's always traffic, always movement, always someone going somewhere else. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only person in town who stays put, who doesn't have somewhere more important to be. When I'm certain she's asleep, I slip out of bed and pad downstairs to the kitchen. It's a nice kitchen. Sam insisted on the granite countertops and stainless steel appliances when we renovated 3 years ago. We need to think about resale value, she'd said. Though at the time I thought we were building a life, not preparing an exit strategy. I make coffee, even though it's nearly 4 in the morning. The routine calms me, gives my hands something to do while my mind races through possibilities I don't want to consider. But the evidence has been mounting for weeks now. The late nights at the office, the new clothes, subtle but expensive. The way she guards her phone like it contains state secrets. The distance in her eyes when she looks at me, like she's already somewhere else. I've been a mechanic for 15 years. You learn to trust your instincts about what's wrong with an engine, even when the symptoms are subtle. You listen for the sounds that don't belong, feel for the vibrations that signal trouble ahead. My marriage has been making all the wrong sounds lately. The coffee finishes brewing, and I pour myself a mug, black. Sam always adds cream and sugar, says she doesn't understand how I can drink it straight. It's bitter, she complains. I've started to think she's talking about more than just coffee. I sit at our kitchen table, the one we picked out together at that furniture store in Hartford, the one where we spent an entire Saturday afternoon debating wood stains and chair styles like they were the most important decisions we'd ever make. Now I'm sitting here alone at 4 in the morning, wondering if my wife is having an affair. Actually, wondering isn't the right word. Wondering implies uncertainty. What I'm doing is trying to decide how long I've known for sure and why I've been pretending otherwise. The phone sits on the counter, plugged into its charger, screen dark. Sam's phone. She left it downstairs, which is unusual. Normally, it's attached to her hand, like a medical device. I stare at it for a long time, drinking my coffee, listening to the house settle around me. I'm not the kind of man who goes through his wife's phone. At least, I wasn't. But then again, I wasn't the kind of man whose wife comes home at 2:30 in the morning smelling like another man's cologne either. People change. Circumstances change. Sometimes you have to change with them. I pick up the phone. It's password protected, of course, but I know Sam's passwords. She uses the same 4 digits for everything. Our wedding anniversary. The irony would be funny if it weren't so pathetic. The screen unlocks, and I'm in. Her text messages are a minefield of casual deception. Work conversations that seem normal on the surface, but carry an undercurrent of something more intimate. References to inside jokes I'm not part of. Plans made and changed with a frequency that suggests spontaneity, or maybe just careful coordination to avoid detection. But it's not just Vince. There are messages from Paul Ashford, too. Paul, my best friend since high school. Paul, who was my best man at our wedding. Paul, who comes over for barbecues and watches football games in my basement and drinks my beer while complaining about his own wife, Bridget. The messages between Sam and Paul are different from the ones with Vince. More familiar, more comfortable. They have the easy intimacy of people who've known each other for years, which they have, through me. But there's something else there too, something that makes my stomach clench like I've swallowed broken glass. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow," Paul wrote 2 days ago. Same here. E will be at the shop until 6, so we have time. E? That's me. Eddie. They're talking about me like I'm an obstacle to navigate around, a schedule to work around. I'm a problem to be solved, not a person to be considered. I scroll through more messages, going back weeks. The pattern becomes clear, and it's worse than I imagined. Sam isn't just having an affair. She's having 2 affairs, with 2 different men, neither of whom knows about the other. Paul thinks he's her secret lover, stealing moments when her husband isn't looking. Vince thinks the same thing. Both of them believe they're the exception, the one man who could tempt faithful Sam Granger away from her boring mechanic husband. Neither realizes he's just one of multiple options, like items on a menu she's sampling before making a decision. The rage that builds in my chest isn't the explosive kind. It's not the type that makes men punch walls or throw dishes or scream at the sky. It's volcanic, molten, pressurized, dangerous in its stillness. It's the kind of anger that calcifies into architecture, that builds structures in your mind designed for one purpose: perfect, methodical destruction. I don't shake, I don't curse, I don't storm upstairs to confront her. Instead, I do what I do best. I start cataloging problems and planning solutions. I open her calendar app. Color-coded entries stretch back months. Blue for work meetings, green for personal appointments, red for what she labels exercise or girls' night or family obligations. But when I cross-reference the red entries with her text messages, a different picture emerges. The exercise sessions correspond with messages to Paul. The girls' nights align with conversations about meeting Vince. She's been systematic about this, organized. I hired him 3 years ago because he knows engines better than most people know their own families, and because sometimes second chances are the only chances that matter. "You're early," Jim says as I unlock the front door. "Everything okay?" Jim has an uncanny ability to read people, probably developed during his years in prison. He can spot trouble from across a parking lot, sense tension in a handshake, detect lies in casual conversation. It's a useful skill in our line of work, where customers often have creative explanations for how their transmissions failed or their engine seized. "Couldn't sleep," I tell him, which is true enough. "Woman troubles?" he asks, and his tone is careful, respectful. Jim knows better than most that some subjects require delicate handling. Something like that. Jim nods and doesn't push. He starts the coffee maker, an ancient machine that produces liquid barely recognizable as coffee, but contains enough caffeine to power a small aircraft, and begins setting up for the day. We have 4 cars scheduled for service, including Mrs. Henderson's Buick, which has been making a grinding noise she describes as like a garbage disposal eating a spoon. I go to my office, a cramped space behind the service bay that contains a desk, 2 filing cabinets, and enough paperwork to choke a government bureaucrat. But it also contains a computer with internet access and a phone line that doesn't go through our house. I have 2 phone calls to make, and I want to make them from here, where Sam can't accidentally overhear, where there's no chance of interruption, where I can speak clearly and calmly without the emotional weight of our bedroom and kitchen and all the memories they contain. The first call is to Sterling Marketing Solutions, the Henderson Industries presentation that supposedly required weekend work, but actually involved a shopping trip to Hartford and another motel visit. The client lunch that lasted until midnight and took place entirely in Vince's apartment. I don't mention that Sam is my wife. I don't explain my personal stake in this information. I present myself as a concerned party with access to information that suggests policy violations, potential conflicts of interest, and misuse of company time and resources. Everything I say is factual, verifiable, and devastating. "We take these allegations very seriously," Patricia assures me. "We'll begin an investigation immediately. Can you provide any documentation to support these claims?" I can email you screenshots of text messages, calendar entries, and credit card receipts, I reply. Would that be helpful? Very helpful. I'll give you a secure email address for submitting evidence. I write down the email address, thank Patricia for her time, and hang up. The entire conversation took less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes to potentially end 2 careers, destroy 2 reputations, and eliminate 2 sources of betrayal from my wife's carefully constructed double life. But I'm not finished. The second call is more personal, more difficult, and infinitely more satisfying. Bridget Oshford answers on the third ring. Hello? Hi, Bridget, it's Eddie Granger. I hope I'm not calling too early. Eddie, not at all. I've been up since 5. You know how it is. What's going on? Bridget is a nurse at Hartford General, works the early shift, gets up before dawn to save lives and comfort families and deal with the kind of human suffering that puts everything else in perspective. She's also sharp, observant, and completely devoted to her husband, despite his numerous flaws. Or at least, she was devoted to him until about 30 seconds from now. I need to talk to you about something, I say carefully. It's about Paul and Sam. I think you should know what's been going on. The silence on the other end of the line stretches long enough for me to hear the coffee maker gurgling in the background of my shop and the distant sound of morning traffic beginning to build outside. I was wondering when someone would finally tell me, Bridget says quietly. That stops me cold. You knew? I suspected. Paul's been different lately. Distracted, secretive. He comes home smelling like perfume that isn't mine, makes excuses for working late that don't make sense, gets phone calls he won't answer in front of me. She pauses, and I can hear her breathing carefully, controlling herself. I just didn't know who it was, though I suppose I should have guessed. Sam always was good at getting what she wanted. I'm sorry, Bridget. I know this is... Don't apologize, Eddie. You're not the one who should be apologizing. Her voice is steady, but I can hear the steel underneath. What do you need from me? The question surprises me. I expected tears, denials, maybe anger directed at me for being the messenger. Instead, she's asking how she can help. Bridget Ashford is tougher than her husband deserves. I'm sending you some information, I tell her. Screenshots, documentation, evidence. What you do with it is up to you, but I thought you should have the complete picture before you decide how to handle this. Send it all, she says. Every last detail. Paul made his choice, and now he gets to live with the consequences. So do I. I promise to email her everything within the hour, and we hang up. 2 phone calls, maybe 15 minutes total, and I've set in motion a chain of events that will systematically dismantle the careful structure of deception my wife and her lovers have built around their betrayals. The beauty of it is the precision. I haven't lied, haven't exaggerated, haven't done anything that could be considered harassment or stalking or revenge in any legal sense. I've simply provided accurate information to people who had a right to know it. HR has a right to know about policy violations. Bridget has a right to know about her husband's infidelity. I'm just facilitating the flow of information, like a mechanic diagnosing problems and recommending appropriate repairs. Jim appears in my office doorway, holding 2 cups of our terrible coffee. Thought you might need this, he says, setting 1 cup on my desk. You look like a man with a lot on his mind. Thanks, Jim. Just handling some personal business. Anything I can help with? The offer is genuine. Jim's loyalty is absolute, earned through 3 years of fair treatment and mutual respect. If I needed someone to help me move bodies, Jim would ask what time and whether he should bring shovels. Not that it will come to that. My revenge is going to be much more civilized. Actually, there might be something, I say. How are you with computers? Jim grins, revealing teeth that have seen better decades. Better than most people think. What do you need? I explain about the email I need to send to Sterling Marketing's ethics hotline, the screenshots and documentation that need to be organized and transmitted securely. Jim listens without judgment, occasionally nodding like he's following the logic of a particularly complex engine repair. Your wife's cheating, he says when I finish. It's not a question. My wife's cheating with 2 different men, neither of whom knows about the other, I correct. Jim whistles low. That's ambitious. Also stupid. You want me to help you burn it all down? I want you to help me provide accurate information to interested parties, I say carefully. What they do with that information is their decision. Right, Jim says, still grinning. Accurate information. I can do that. We spend the next hour organizing the evidence, creating a comprehensive dossier that tells the complete story of Sam's double affair. Screenshots of text messages, calendar entries showing fake appointments, credit card receipts from restaurants and motels, even a few photos I found on her phone. Nothing explicit, just the two of them looking cozy at places she claimed to be attending work functions. The evidence is damning, undeniable, and completely factual. More importantly, it's organized in a way that makes the timeline clear, the deception obvious, and the policy violations explicit. This isn't just proof of adultery, it's proof of systematic misuse of company resources, conflicts of interest, and potential fraud. By 9 o'clock, the dossier is complete and sent to Sterling Marketing's ethics hotline. By 9:15, a condensed version focused on Paul's infidelity is in Bridget's email inbox. By 9:30, I'm under the hood of Mrs. Henderson's Buick, diagnosing the grinding noise that sounds exactly like a garbage disposal eating a spoon. The work is soothing, familiar, honest. The house feels different when I walk through the front door that evening. It's the same furniture, same paint on the walls, same family photos arranged on the mantelpiece, but the atmosphere has changed, like the air pressure has dropped before a storm. Sam is in the kitchen, still wearing her work clothes, standing at the counter with her back to me. Her posture is rigid, defensive, the stance of someone preparing for battle. "We need to talk," she says without turning around. I figured as much. I set my keys on the counter, maintaining the same calm tone I've used all day. "How was your meeting with HR?" Now she turns, and I can see the stress written across her face. Her makeup is smudged around her eyes, her usually perfect hair is disheveled, and there's a tightness around her mouth that suggests she's been clenching her jaw for hours. "Someone reported me to the ethics hotline," she says, watching my reaction carefully. "Made allegations about my relationship with Vince, provided documentation, screenshots, detailed information about our personal interactions." "That's serious," I say, and I mean it. It is serious. It's exactly as serious as I intended it to be. "Eddie, I need you to know that whatever you might hear, whatever people might say, it's not what it looks like. Yes, Vince and I have become close, but it's not, it's complicated." Complicated? There's that word again. Sam's favorite euphemism for situations that are actually quite simple but morally indefensible. "What exactly are you trying to tell me, Sam?" She moves closer, and I can smell that expensive cologne again, the one that definitely doesn't come from my medicine cabinet. It's fainter now, probably applied this morning, but still detectable, still evidence. "I'm trying to tell you that someone is trying to destroy my career, and they're using my friendship with Vince to do it. The allegations are blown completely out of proportion. Yes, we've had dinner a few times. Yes, we've worked closely together on several accounts. But the way it's being presented makes it sound like some kind of sordid affair, and that's just not accurate." I nod thoughtfully, as if I'm processing this information for the first time. "What kind of documentation did they have?" "Text messages, calendar entries, receipts, but taken out of context, everything can be made to look suspicious. A dinner meeting becomes a romantic rendezvous, a working lunch becomes a secret assignation. It's character assassination, pure and simple." "Have you talked to Vince about this?" "Vince was terminated this afternoon," she says quietly, "effective immediately. They escorted him out of the building like he was some kind of criminal." I make appropriate sympathetic noises while internally noting that Sterling Marketing moves faster than I expected. Vince's termination suggests that the evidence I provided was compelling enough to justify immediate action, which means Sam's position is probably more precarious than she's letting on. "What about you? Are you in trouble too?" "I'm on administrative leave pending the outcome of their investigation. They made it clear that my job is in jeopardy." She sits down at our kitchen table, the same table where I drank coffee and planned her downfall 12 hours ago. "Eddie, I'm scared. This could ruin everything we've worked for. The house, our savings, our future, it could all be gone." Our future. It's interesting that she still thinks we have one. I'm sure it will work out, I tell her. The truth has a way of coming to light. That's what I'm afraid of, she says, so quietly I almost don't hear her. The admission hangs in the air between us like smoke from a fire that's just getting started. Sam realizes what she said, how it sounds, and her eyes widen slightly. She's always been smart, always been quick to recognize when she's made a tactical error. But she's also been living a double life for months, and the stress of maintaining multiple deceptions is starting to show. What I mean is, she says quickly, the truth is that I haven't done anything wrong, but in situations like this, perception matters more than reality. Even innocent interactions can be misconstrued by people with malicious intent. Who do you think would want to hurt you like this? It's a reasonable question, the kind a supportive husband would ask. Sam considers it seriously, running through possibilities in her mind. I can almost see her mental calculations, weighing suspects, evaluating motives, trying to identify enemies she might have made. I don't know, she finally admits. Maybe someone at work who felt passed over for promotion. Maybe a competitor trying to damage our client relationships. Maybe just someone who enjoys causing trouble. She doesn't suspect me. Despite everything, the timing, the detailed nature of the evidence, the fact that I had access to all the information that was reported, it hasn't occurred to her that her husband might be the source of her problems. I'm not sure whether that speaks to her trust in me or her fundamental inability to see me as a threat. What can I do? I ask. The question seems to surprise her. Maybe she expected anger, accusations, demands for explanations. I'm hurt and I'm angry and I'm tired of pretending otherwise, but I'm also relieved. Does that make sense? For months, I've been questioning my own instincts, wondering if I was being paranoid or jealous or unreasonable. Now I know I was right to trust my gut. It makes perfect sense. The worst part of betrayal isn't the betrayal itself, it's the gaslighting that comes with it, the systematic undermining of your ability to trust your own perceptions. Sam has been making me question my instincts for months, explaining away inconsistencies, providing plausible alternatives to obvious conclusions. The relief of finally having proof is almost as powerful as the anger. What happens next? I ask. For me, I move on. I file for divorce, I divide our assets, I start over. It's not the life I planned, but it's better than the life I was living. She pauses. What about you? What's your next move? It's the question I've been avoiding all day, the one Jim asked and the one I still don't have a complete answer to. Sam is upstairs getting ready to sneak out and meet her lover, probably to plan their response to the crisis I've created. In a few hours, she'll lie to my face about where she's going, then return home and lie to my face about where she's been. The pattern will continue until I decide to break it. I think I'm going to follow her tonight, I tell Bridget. See where they meet, what they say, how they plan to handle this situation. Be careful, Eddie. People do stupid things when they're cornered. I'll be careful. But I need to see this through to the end. After we hang up, I go back inside and listen to Sam moving around upstairs. The shower has stopped, and now I can hear her opening drawers, selecting clothes, preparing for her clandestine meeting. I park across the street behind a closed gas station and watch as Sam walks to room 237. The door opens before she can knock, and Paul pulls her inside quickly, like he's afraid someone might be watching. Someone is watching. Me. The husband whose best friend is having an affair with his wife, meeting in a cheap motel to plan their response to the crisis that same husband created by reporting their relationship to the appropriate authorities. The situation would be funny if it weren't my life. I settle in to wait, wondering what they're discussing in that shabby room, what plans they're making, what promises they're exchanging. Are they plotting to weather this storm together? Or are they already beginning to blame each other for their current predicament? Is this a strategy session or a goodbye? I suppose I'll find out when Sam comes home and lies to me about where she's been. The architecture of revenge is a beautiful thing when it's working properly. Every action produces a predictable reaction. Every pressure point responds exactly as expected. Every structural weakness leads inevitably to collapse.
I've spent one day systematically dismantling the careful deception my wife and her lovers built around their betrayals, and already the entire edifice is crumbling. But Jim was right about one thing. Sometimes when you're tearing down a building, you have to be careful not to bring the whole neighborhood down with it. The question is whether I care about preserving the neighborhood, or whether I'd rather watch it all burn and build something entirely new from the ashes. Sitting in my truck in the darkness, watching my wife's silhouette move past the motel room window, I'm starting to think that fire might be the only way to truly clean this mess up.
Sam returns home at 1:47 a.m., moving through our house with the practiced stealth of someone who's done this many times before. I'm lying in bed, eyes closed, breathing steady, playing the role of the oblivious husband who sleeps through his wife's nocturnal adventures. She slips into bed beside me, and I can smell cigarette smoke in her hair. Paul's cigarettes, a habit he's never been able to shake despite Bridget's constant nagging. "How was your drive?" I ask quietly, not moving. She freezes for a moment, probably wondering if I'm actually awake or just talking in my sleep. "Relaxing," she finally whispers. "I feel much better now." Relaxing. Spending 2 hours in a cheap motel room with your lover, planning damage control for your exposed affair, is apparently Sam's idea of relaxation. The capacity for self-deception never ceases to amaze me. I wait until her breathing settles into genuine sleep before slipping out of bed and heading downstairs to my computer. The night's surveillance has given me new information, new leverage, new opportunities for strategic pressure. Sam and Paul think they're managing this crisis, but they're actually making it worse with every decision they make. I draft an email to Bridget, updating her on the evening's activities. She deserves to know that her soon-to-be ex-husband is still actively involved with my wife, still prioritizing his affair over any attempt at reconciliation or repair. The information will be useful in her divorce proceedings, and it confirms that Paul hasn't learned anything from today's consequences. Then I draft a second email, this one to Sterling Marketing's ethics hotline. "Additional evidence has come to light," I explain. Despite being placed on administrative leave, the subject of the investigation continues to meet secretly with terminated employee Vincent Vance at off-site locations, suggesting ongoing coordination that could constitute obstruction of their internal investigation. It's not entirely accurate. Sam met with Paul, not Vince, but the ethics board doesn't need to know that. The important point is that Sam is continuing to engage in secretive behavior that undermines the integrity of their investigation. The specific identity of her co-conspirator is less important than the pattern of deception it represents. I schedule both emails to send at 8 a.m. when normal business hours begin, and my messages won't seem like the products of late-night obsession. Then I return to bed, where Sam is sleeping peacefully, probably dreaming of a future where her current problems magically resolve themselves without consequences. The next morning unfolds with the surreal normalcy that has become our routine. Sam makes coffee, I read the newspaper, we exchange pleasantries about the weather and our plans for the day. She's become remarkably good at compartmentalizing, at maintaining the fiction of our marriage while simultaneously working to preserve her relationship with Paul. It's an impressive performance in its way. "I might be late tonight," she mentions casually as she gathers her things for work. "I have a meeting with my lawyer to discuss the situation at Sterling." "Good idea. It's important to protect yourself." "Exactly. I need to be proactive about this, make sure my rights are protected." She pauses at the door, keys in hand. "Eddie, I want you to know how much I appreciate your support through all of this." "How long has this been going on?" he asks. "At least 3 months that I can prove, possibly longer. There are 2 men involved, though they don't know about each other." Webb whistles softly. "That's ambitious. Also sloppy. People who manage multiple affairs simultaneously usually make mistakes, leave trails, create inconsistencies that are easy to document." "That's what I'm hoping." We discuss strategy, timelines, and fees. Webb's services aren't cheap, but they're thorough. Within a week, he promises, I'll have a complete dossier that documents every aspect of Sam's double life, organized in a format that will be devastating in court and impossible to refute. "One question," Webb says as our meeting concludes. "Are you sure you want to go down this road?
Once you have this kind of documentation, once you've built this kind of case, there's no going back. Reconciliation becomes very difficult when you've systematically cataloged every betrayal. It's a fair question, and one I've been asking myself for days. Do I want to save my marriage, or do I want to win the divorce? Do I want to rebuild trust, or do I want perfect revenge? The two goals are mutually exclusive, and I need to choose. I want the documentation, I tell him. What I do with it afterward is my decision. Webb nods and doesn't push. He's probably heard similar statements from hundreds of betrayed spouses over the years, people who convince themselves they're just gathering information when they're actually preparing for war. The second call is to my own lawyer, Jennifer Martinez, who handled the legal work when I inherited my father's business.
She's smart, experienced, and ruthless when necessary, exactly the kind of representation I'll need if this situation escalates to formal divorce proceedings. I need to understand my options, I explain when we meet that afternoon. Property division, alimony, business assets, the whole range of possibilities. Martinez asks pointed questions about our financial situation, our assets, our debts, and the circumstances of Sam's infidelity. She takes notes on everything, occasionally asking for clarification or additional detail. The good news is that your business predates the marriage, so it's largely protected, she explains. The house is joint property, but if you can prove that her misconduct contributed to the breakdown of the marriage, that could influence how assets are divided. What about alimony? That depends on several factors: length of marriage, income disparity, standard of living, and again, the circumstances of the breakdown. If she loses her job due to professional misconduct, that complicates her claim for ongoing support. We discuss strategy, timeline, and potential outcomes. Martinez is thorough, professional, and reassuringly competent. If this situation requires legal warfare, I'm well armed. One more thing, she says as our meeting ends, document everything. Keep records of all interactions, all evidence, all attempts at communication or reconciliation. The more organized your case, the better your outcome. I assure her that documentation won't be a problem. By the time I return home that evening, I've laid the groundwork for the complete legal and financial destruction of my marriage. Private investigator hired, divorce attorney consulted, evidence being systematically gathered and organized. It's exactly the kind of evidence that will destroy any remaining credibility she has with Sterling's investigation. Webb emails me the documentation within minutes. The evidence is comprehensive, damning, and perfectly organized. Sam's text messages with Vince reveal a coordinated effort to undermine Sterling's investigation, including plans to provide false testimony, withhold evidence, and blame their relationship on a malicious third party who's trying to destroy their careers. The malicious third party, of course, is me, but they still don't know that. I forward Webb's documentation to Sterling Marketing's ethics hotline with a brief note explaining that additional evidence has come to light regarding ongoing coordination between the subjects of their investigation. Then I send a copy to Bridget, who deserves to know that Paul is still actively involved with Sam despite the destruction of his marriage. By the time Sam comes downstairs for breakfast, I've systematically undermined every aspect of her damage control strategy. Her coordination with Vince will be exposed within hours. Her meetings with Paul are documented and time-stamped. Her attempts to blame external enemies for her problems will be revealed as deflection from her own misconduct. "You're up early," she observes, pouring coffee with hands that shake slightly. "Couldn't sleep, too much on my mind." She sits across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where this all began 3 days ago. She looks exhausted, older somehow, like the stress of maintaining multiple deceptions is finally taking its physical toll.